How many times have you heard the quote, "Life is a journey, not a destination"? If you're anything like me, you've heard variations on this all the time. But despite life's attempts to bang this lesson into my thick skull, I often found myself purely focusing on the destination. And last week was one of those times. Striving to make up for lost time, I realized I was completely ignoring the enjoyment of the writing and instead trying to hit an ever-increasing word count goal. But it didn't just start last week. In fact, over the last few months, this habit has led me to stress, missed sleep, and burnout. So I've decided to finally overcome this habit and see if I can't enjoy the journey. So with our theme of trying to enjoy the writing process as much as possible and really focusing on giving my all for the process and the writing in the moment rather than focusing on some specific goal that I'm trying to hit, some sort of word count, let's get started with this day by looking at the first scenes and chapters that I want to write. The first chapter is one from Pramana's perspective, and the second chapter I'm going to write is one from Lucian's. These are both one scene chapters, so they should be relatively short, so I'm going to put them together. The first is this one from Pramana in the Fun and Games, and the second is this one from Lucian in the Fun and Games. So let's just get started on the journaling, and then I'm gonna lay down on the floor and start my dictation again, and we'll get to this right. Both of these scenes have some really exciting moments that they're building up to. This one comes pretty close to the end, but that one's going to be really fun to write, I already know. And this one, it's toward the middle / the end. So it is 9:15 and I have managed to write to 42,759 words. When I was doing the writing, I was having a ton of fun and the writing was really flowing easily. The scenes that I was writing were really interesting scenes to write. Both of them had key moments of like high tension. So because of that, I was really looking forward to building up toward those moments. Overall, I am enjoying not focusing on the word count, and I ended up writing a lot of words anyway, and pretty quickly if I hadn't spent so long editing. So I actually just had a realization about why this dictation has been so slow for me. And it's not anything to do with the dictation. It's to do with the editing. I realized that I am kind of getting a little picky with the editing. When I go through, I'm not just correcting errors in specific words or anything like that. I'm actually correcting sentence structure as well, and sometimes changing what I'm writing, and I'm basically editing like I would be line editing. Because I'm doing this more serious editing, instead of just focusing on fixing up the words that are wrong, it's taking me much longer. So I'm going to be aware of that because it's not the time to do line editing. This is the first draft. What the heck am I doing? Okay, so the next chapters I'm going to work on are this one from Ella, this one from Lucian, and then this one from Pramana. And those correspond to these three scenes in 15 from Ella, Lucian, and Pramana. So it is 2:52 and I have managed to get to 45,503 words. So today I managed to write 6,487 words. So I didn't really have any specific word count goal for the day. I wasn't planning on reaching any sort of word count goal. I was just focusing on trying to enjoy the process as much as possible. But even so, I was able to write quite a bit today. And I think part of the reason is because I had that focus on enjoying things, and I was just getting lost a little bit in the writing, to the point that I had a few more than usual errors that I had to deal with in the editing, like forgetting that certain words are off limits because Microsoft will never recognize what they are. But I do think that's a good indicator of how I was able to get into a flow state and be able to write. And actually, I wrote very quickly. If you cut out that really long editing session that I did, the actual time I spent writing all of these words, all 6,000 of them, was probably like 2 hours and 20 minutes maybe. And all the other time was editing and doing my journaling. So overall, I actually did write pretty quickly with the dictation. I'm really happy with the progress I made today, and I think that if I bring this sort of energy and this enthusiasm to the writing, as the story continues to get more interesting and tension continues to rise, I think it'll become even easier for me to continue this writing and to maybe even just get some pretty high word count days without even really trying to go after it so much. Or so I thought. Before we get started today, I do want to let you know about what's going on in here. Basically, last night I didn't sleep that well. Probably slept 4 hours. Anyway, my brain feels pretty terrible. Like I thought of this thing that I wanted to do before. I walked to my room and I literally in that space of time couldn't remember what the heck it was, and I still don't remember what it is. So that's just a good indicator of how things are not functioning quite so well right now. Even so, I do think this is a potentially good opportunity because I have these days periodically where my brain is not in this amazing state where I'm feeling relatively tired and a little bit slower than normal. So this is a good day to see what it feels like to actually be making sure that I'm enjoying the writing and giving my all to the writing and being excited for it rather than focusing on reaching some specific target and feeling that it's such a big target that I have this pressure to finish it fast. Anyway, let's just get started here figuring out what we're going to write. So I'm going to start with this chapter. It's actually only one scene. I'm planning on including a little reactive bit afterward, so it's going to have a little bit more. So I think this one will be long enough to get me started. It is 8:06 and I have written 47,638 words. I am quite tired, as you might see from my eyes, my brain, and my current ability to express words. As far as this actual writing went, the writing itself was relatively quick, and this scene was actually pretty long. Overall it was 2,000 or so words, and it was a fun one to write, man. I've been waiting to write this one for quite a while actually, because it's kind of this culmination of a bunch of different things in Ella's story, and then also the start of like a conflict between her and another character I won't name right now. It's a really interesting scene, so I had fun with that. I'm going to be starting with the chapter that I was debating working on before. It is this chapter right here, and it's going to comprise a few scenes. So first the backstory scene, then a scene from Lucian, and then a scene from Ella. It should be quite a bit of writing, and I'll probably finish my writing here with this chapter. Let's see what we get. Oh, and also it does feel good on a day like this where I am really tired not to have any sort of word count pressures adding on to that and making it worse. Okay, so it is 2:08 and I have written 51,319 words. Okay, so I learned potentially a flaw of dictation and myself. Basically, when I'm tired, I tend to ramble. We all know that already. And if I am tired and dictating, it seems like I apply that a little bit to my descriptions. They can get a little bit long-winded, so I had to edit a decent amount out. Strangely, I actually was able to write pretty quickly today with 5,816 words in just under 4 hours, for a word per minute of 1,500. Today was an interesting writing day, despite the fact that I was struggling with sleep problems and my brain was feeling rather wrecked and kind of useless. I was still able to get some good work done, and these were some really fun scenes to write. This chapter that I just wrote here was another one that I've been looking forward to ever since I went on that walk and came up with all these ideas for Lucian's scenes. And although I was making good progress, my habit wasn't going away that easily. I noticed myself slowly slipping back into checking on word count, and of course it makes sense that my focus would want to shift back there because of the fact that I'm focusing on doing this in a specific amount of time, and that is one of my goals with this writing. So of course I want to keep track of my progress, but I do want to make sure that I'm not obsessing over those things and that I'm just trying to focus on enjoying the writing as much as I can and actually writing the scenes as fast as I can while I'm writing them. And I want to stay vigilant to not let myself keep checking on word counts over and over and over again. So I was just looking at what I'm going to be writing next, and I'm going to start off with this first chapter from Pramana, and then this one which contains scenes from Ella and Lucian. And I actually noticed that I'm writing all of the midpoint scenes here today. So it's going to be this first one from Pramana, then Ella's midpoint, and then Lucian's midpoint scene. And Ella's and Lucian's are kind of tied together. So it is 8:35 and I have managed to get up to 56,328 words. That was a good writing session. There were definitely some interesting scenes there in the midpoint from all the characters, and as you can imagine, it was pretty long. The actual writing itself, including the journaling, took 1 hour and 30 minutes. However, I just finished up with the editing, and that took another 45 minutes on top of things. Just correcting, mistakes. So that's not ideal. Word is really, how do I say this? Inconsistent. Sometimes it seems like it's working really well and like it's actually picking up everything I say. It's only getting maybe 5-10% wrong. And other times it seems like it's closer to 10 to 15% wrong, which is actually quite a lot to change when you're literally just trying to go through and make sure it's all fine. I might actually try out something new. I have heard of this app. Kate Kavanaugh talked about it on her video about 5,000 words an hour. So I might try out that app as well and see if it works better than Word, because I really want to make sure that I'm doing this as efficiently as possible, and having to go through and edit for a long time, edit things that I didn't get wrong, is a little bit of a pain. I'm going to try writing at least one of the scenes and using this app of speech notes. If it actually does a better job recognizing the words, then maybe it will be something useful. Oh, and also because I'm doing it on my phone, I can't record video while I'm doing it, so I'll be back in a bit to tell you how it actually went. I just tested it out, and I actually don't think it's any better than Microsoft Word's voice recognition. It still gets a bunch of stuff wrong, unfortunately, but I think probably what has a bigger impact on the problems that I'm having is the fact that I don't pronounce words clearly enough. See how I'm pronouncing everything so clearly right now. I think normally I blend words together a little bit and I don't pronounce as clearly as I could, and because of that, Microsoft Word and other voice recognition software is having trouble figuring out exactly what I'm saying. So rather than trying to switch to different software, I'm going to focus on trying to both somehow enjoy the writing as much as possible and also focus on pronouncing things clearly. So I'm going to be working on 3 different chapters, the one with Pramana, with Ella, and with Lucian, because each of these correlates to its own scene. I actually had to rewrite this scene because things have changed a little bit from what I initially anticipated, and I'm going to finish up these 3 in this next writing block. So it is 2:55 and I have managed to get to 57,869 words. And today was a little bit of a slower day. I wrote 4,535 words. It was about 1,134 words an hour. So I think the reason why today was a little bit slower was for various reasons. One of them being me experimenting with that app and then realizing that it wasn't really doing much better than Microsoft Word. And during this second writing session, I was able to pronounce things more clearly just by focusing a little bit on the pronunciation. I did have fewer errors, so I do need to make sure that I'm doing that while I'm dictating, because it does feel so much better to read through and not have all these random words that don't make any sense in there. One more thing, you probably noticed that I didn't write that many words today, for my standards of course, only 4,500. And the reason why I did this is because I have been looking into how much I have left in this story, and I decided that I want to finish it in 2 more weeks, including the week that I'm currently on. And in looking at that goal, I decided that I want to finish 6 scenes a day. So however many chapters it takes to finish those 6 scenes a day, but I'd rather focus on scenes than word count, because I noticed that when I'm using dictation, I tend to have higher word counts per scene because I speak a little bit differently than I write, and things end up being a little bit longer. So I don't want to be focusing so much on word count and rather focusing on scenes and chapters for a measurement of progress. Obviously, I'm still focusing on making the scenes as exciting as I can and enjoying them as much as I can. And even after switching from word count goals to scene goals, I was still facing a recurring problem. And really what this is the fact that I've had trouble just focusing on the journey. It's making it difficult to purely enjoy the process of writing, and I realize that this is because the destination goal is close and it's actually a real deadline. If I don't finish this before this deadline, then it won't be good. And I'll talk a little bit more about this real deadline in the next video, but just know for now that there's like a concrete deadline, and if I don't finish this book before that time, then my whole process is going to be set back even further. So I really want to finish before that. And because of that, the deadline itself and the destination goal is looming overhead and making it harder to necessarily focus on the process. So what I just realized is that instead of trying to ignore the destination outright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a specific goal every single day that's going to move me toward that destination in the way that it needs to. And because I know if I just do this every day, I'm going to move to that destination in the way I need to, then I can actually just focus on the journey when I'm in the process of writing, because all I have to do is finish this much and I'm going to get there. So this realization, I think, is actually really interesting, and it took me 3 times talking about this to figure it out. So this is the 3rd take. And speaking of making the process as enjoyable as possible, one of the things that I've noticed myself becoming lazier about as this week has gone on is actually visualizing the scenes before I write them. I'm still doing that knowledge component from 2K to 10K where I'm writing out the details for every single scene, but I'm not actually finding the most exciting moment by visualizing the scene. And I really think that that would be useful for me, and it was useful for me when I did it, to get excited about the scene as well as to enjoy the writing process more because of how exciting the scene is. So with this whole goal in mind of me trying to enjoy the process as much as I can here, I need to make sure that I'm not being lazy about this and that I'm actually taking time to visualize the scenes and actually taking time to make sure they're as exciting as they can be. With that in mind, let's just get on to the actual writing here for the day. I have to figure out what scenes I'm actually working on here. So I realized that I forgot to write the second half of this part from Lucian yesterday. So I'm going to start with this second half of this chapter with Lucian, and then I'm going to move on to this scene from Pramana. So the Lucian part is going to include this scene here and also this backstory scene afterward, and then the Pramana scene is just one here. So it is 8:32 and I have managed to get to 59,933 words. So that writing session was actually really good, and taking the time to visualize it definitely did help because it allowed me to figure out these really key moments that I was working toward in each of the scenes. And for at least one of the scenes, I wasn't aware of the moment in the notes that I had already taken for the scene. So if I hadn't done it, then maybe that scene would have been harder to write. I would have been less excited about it and it wouldn't have worked as well. So I need not to be lazy and to actually take the time to figure this stuff out. Also, just in general, because of the fact that I have decided that I'm going to be doing 6 or so scenes every single day and I have that destination related goal worked out for each day, it does make my life a little bit easier because I can just focus on enjoying the process because all I have to do is write the 6 scenes, and however I get there, it's not really a big deal. The point is to finish the 6 scenes. I think this kind of hybrid approach is actually working well for me and I'm enjoying the writing so far. And I'm actually just going to continue straight through and finish the remaining scenes. Okay, so I have a chapter from Ella, and this one actually is going to contain 3 scenes, so I'm going to be working on writing these 3 scenes in this block. Okay, so it is 10:39 and I managed to work my way up to 62,112 words. I was able to write 4,243 words today and I wrote 1,212 words an hour. So once again, the word count is a little bit lower today, but I think that's because I've taken the focus off of word count now and onto scenes. Also, some of my scenes today were reaction scenes. There were at least 2 that were reaction scenes, so that definitely had an impact as well, since those tend to be a lot shorter. And the scenes weren't super long scenes in general today either. There weren't any scenes that were like 2,000 words like I've had recently. So all of those things added up to a little bit of a lower word count day, but still some great work. I finished 6 scenes today, on pace to finish this book. As someone who's always struggled with obsessing about the destination and ignoring the journey, this week came with a powerful lesson. Life doesn't have to be only about the journey or only about the destination. Focusing on the destination is vital to actually getting somewhere, but life is lived in the present. So to enjoy your life, you must enjoy the journey. And I'm curious, what habit do you have around your writing that you would like to overcome? Let me know in the comments below. And also, if you like this video, make sure to smash that like button so that YouTube knows to share with other writers like you. And if you want to see my slow descent into obsessing over word count goals, then make sure to watch last week's video next. What's going on? I'm back and I am tired, but I'm trying to put some energy into this. Let's go. I'm still doing the, is this upside down? Oh.